Welcome everyone. Glad to see you on my channel. Today I will tell you about an unusual story, an amazing story about companionship and love. I wish you a pleasant audience. Having colored the last cloud, 5-year-old Maria once again looked at her drawing and smiled dreamily, and then went to the kitchen, where her mother was preparing dinner. "Mommy, I drew you a picture," she said to her mother, holding out a piece of paper. The woman smiled and, having washed her hands, sat down on a stool. "Let's see," she said to her daughter, taking another masterpiece from her hands. "Well, tell me who you have depicted here." The girl came to the table and, showing with her finger, one by one, all the people and animals depicted by her, began to explain to her mother who is who. "This is you, Mommy. This is Daddy. This is my big brother. This is me. And this is my little sister, and this is our cat and dog." A happy smile played on the child's lips. Stacy stroked her daughter's head and smiled a little sadly. She had given birth to Maria at the age of 25 to a man she loved very much. Except it turned out that he had no plans to become a father, and when he found out about Stacy's pregnancy, he urged her to have an abortion and gave her a choice. And Stacy made her choice. After packing up all her things, she moved in with her mom and never saw Maria's dad again. "Is it pretty, Mommy?" asked the girl, looking at her mother. "It's very pretty," Stacy replied. Maria had long dreamed of having a big family. She was sad to see fathers playing with their children on the playground. They put them on their shoulders, caught them from the slide, swung them on the swings, and together in the sandbox they molded dolls. The girl believed that one day she too would have a father, and also an older brother who would protect her and help her do her homework, and a little sister she would take care of, and when she grew up, she would be her best friend. There were no animals in their house because her grandmother was allergic to wool, and Maria, like any child, dreamed of a pet, but she didn't know who she wanted more, a cat or a dog. So in her drawing she depicted both, believing that one day she would have them. A year later, Stacy had been working at a neighborhood dentist office for 10 years. She loved her job, but for the past few months she'd been going there like hard labor. Things hadn't worked out with the new manager, but she wasn't the only one, and she was already looking for a new place. And an unexpected call from a former colleague set things right. "So come to us," said the woman, listening to Stacy's complaints. "We need a doctor right now, and you have a lot of experience." "Veronica, I'd love to. Are you sure they'll take you?" Stacy's spirits perked up. "I'm sure. I'll put in a good word for you." Veronica had been working in a private clinic for a couple of years and was happy with it. She called Stacy back the next day and told her that she could come in for an interview tomorrow. The owner of the clinic, Alexander, read all the documents carefully and looked at Stacy with a smile. "Well, welcome to the clinic," he said. "When are you ready to start?" Stacy smiled back. "I have to work 2 weeks at my old place, but I could start working here on my days off," she said. "Why the weekend? Work your ass off, and then come back when you're fired." Stacy walked home, a happy smile on her lips. The schedule was better and the pay was twice as much. The 2 weeks flew by quickly and she was eager to get started at her new job. "How do you like it here?" Veronica asked after a week. "I like it very much." "Veronica, thank you so much." Stacy looked at her friend with gratitude. "That's great." Veronica smiled enigmatically. "Our Alexander obviously likes you," she said. "How do you know that?" Stacy asked. She hadn't noticed anything like that, though she liked her new boss. All she knew about him was that he was 37 years old and loved his job. He was an interesting man, and Stacy had no doubt that he was married, even though he didn't have a wedding ring on his finger. "I've seen the way he looks at you. I'm telling you, we'll marry you off," Veronica said. "Isn't he married?" Stacy asked. "I don't know the details of his love life, but he's been divorced for about 3 years. The only thing is that he has a son, Slavka, You'll see him sometime. Alexander brings him to the clinic sometimes. He seems like a normal kid, 10 years old. Maybe that's why he never remarried, that everyone wants a husband with kids. Stacy understood that. She'd had a few affairs over the years, but no one was in a hurry to marry her, not wanting to take care of her daughter. Veronica was right, and Stacy and Alexander began an affair. Maria, tomorrow we're not going out with you, but in very nice company. Stacy told her daughter one night. Who with? She asked, looking at her mother curiously. Remember when you always wanted to have a daddy and a big brother? Stacy smiled because today Alexander had proposed to her, which she had gladly accepted, feeling happy for the first time in years. Are we going to go out with them? The girl asked excitedly. With them, Stacy replied. Mommy, will we have a little sister and a cat and a dog too? Well, they have a cat, Stacy said, because Alexander had just recently gotten a kitten. I can't say about the rest yet. Maria was looking forward to Saturday. She found her old drawing and began to look at it. Thank you, Santa Claus, she said. After all, she had written him a letter for New Year's Eve, not asking for toys, but asking him to fulfill her long-held dream of a big family. On Saturday, Maria quickly ate her breakfast. She couldn't wait to go to the playground, where her future father and brother would be waiting for her and her mother. The man sat down and handed Maria a box containing a large brown puppy that could walk and bark. Hello, Maria, he said, smiling good-naturedly at the girl. Your mom said that you dream of having a dog. Of course, it's not a real one, but we'll be sure to get a live puppy later, too. Honestly? The girl asked excitedly. Of course, honestly, replied the man. We'll take a walk now, and then we'll go to our house and you'll play with Caramel. And she is small, asked the girl. Very small. I'll show her to you now. The man took out his phone and showed Maria a picture of a kitten, and the girl glowed. She's so pretty, she said. Alexander got up and called his son, who was running around the playground with the boys. Colin, come here. The boy came over to them. He didn't look happy. Colin, this is Maria. I told you about her. Hi, he said nonchalantly, turning to look at the running boys. It was obvious that he wanted to run with them, and he wasn't interested in his newly baked sister. Hi. Maria answered, a little upset. Dad, can I go? He asked, looking at his father. Go, he said, and looked at Stacy. Slavka is not a gift, but I hope you'll get along with him. Maria swung on the swing, looking with genuine adoration at Alexander, who was swinging her. After the walk, they went to a cafe, where her future father bought her a very tasty ice cream, and then all together went to visit Alexander and Colin, where Maria could not tear away from Caramel. She was not even upset by the fact that Colin did not want to communicate with her, closed in his room. Stacy and Alexander got married, and Maria moved into a spacious new apartment where Caramel was waiting for her. She was completely happy with her new life, unlike Colin, who continued to ignore her, as did Stacy, who was trying hard to make the child feel at ease. Colin, come and have tea. I've baked your favorite muffins. Stacy walked into her husband's son's room. I don't want any, he said, keeping his eyes on the computer game. It had been months since the wedding, but the boy's attitude remained the same. He doesn't accept us, Stacy said to her husband one day, sighing heavily. He will. Just give him time, he replied, hugging his wife. The man himself was worried, repeatedly tried to talk to his son, but he only replied that they were complete strangers to him, and he did not want to communicate with them at all. Colin had no conflicts with either Stacy or Maria, but just tried to pretend that they did not exist. But as time went on, he softened a little towards his new family. Why are you crying? One day he came into Maria's room when he heard her crying. I have a test tomorrow and I don't understand anything. I for homework put a D, sobbing, said the girl. Well, show me what you don't understand, he said, sitting down next to her. Here. Maria put the math book in front of him and showed him the examples she couldn't solve. "How easy it is," he said, and began to explain how easy it is to solve. Algebra was very difficult for the girl, while her new brother grasped everything on the fly and was an excellent student. Unlike her, Maria listened attentively, trying to understand. They solved a few examples together, and she began to understand more or less what she couldn't understand at all. "Thank you," the girl said gratefully. "It's okay, you're welcome," he replied. "Colin, why don't you like my mom? She's nice, isn't she?" Suddenly Maria asked. "I like her," the boy answered, smiling a little. He left the room, and Maria looked at him and smiled. She realized that Colin had finally accepted her and her mother. Now, all that was missing for her complete happiness was a little sister and a dog. 2 years later, "She's so tiny," Maria said, standing by the crib and admiring her newborn baby sister, Casey. "You were like that too," said Stacy, hugging her daughter with one arm. "Nice." Colin smiled at Stacy. "I agree," she replied, ruffling his hair. "And while she's sleeping, come on, I'll feed you." They quietly left the room, closing the door as Buddy, their 1.5-year-old beagle dog, rushed to his feet, wagging his tail and twirling happily. "You little bully," said Maria, petting the dog. "We should take him for a walk." Stacy looked at the children. "Come on, let's wash up, eat lunch, and go for a walk." After a quick lunch, the children picked up Buddy and headed outside. And Maria thought about how dreams are bound to come true if they come from the heart. Years later, "I can't wait to get over this," Maria sighed, looking at her friend Selena, with whom they were preparing for the final exams together. "And don't tell me," she replied, puzzling over a physics problem. "You and I will never solve this abracadabra. When is your brother coming?" She looked at her friend. "He should be here any minute. Only you ask him, or he will start to attack me again, that he studied for me all these years," Maria said. Colin finished school with a gold medal, and she had a few 3s for the last year, and one of them was in physics. Since Colin had moved out, her grades had dropped dramatically. Maria went out into the hallway when she heard someone coming, and Colin was standing there with Casey hanging around his neck. "You're going to strangle her," he said, smiling at her, and she unclasped her arms and stood on the floor. "Hi." Maria walked over and pecked her brother on the cheek. Selena came out of the room and waved at Colin, rewarding her with a smile. "Are you studying for your exams, you two, son?" he asked Maria, smiling. With a pleading look in her eyes, the girl looked at her brother. "No, no, and again no. Come on, girls, turn on your brains and yourself," he replied. "Please, please, please, please," literally begged Maria, and Selena put her palms together and brought them to her face. She looked as if the world was about to end. Colin sighed and shook his head disapprovingly. "What are we going to do with you?" "I'll just eat first. Why don't you heat up something nice for me? I'm on my way," joyfully replied Maria. "Selena, let's go to the kitchen." Smiling at Colleen, her friend followed Maria. "Well, I'm going for a walk with Buddy," said Casey, and went to her room to change. Colin left, and satisfied girlfriends having tea settled down on the sofa in Maria's room. "Maria, I like your brother," Selena confessed to her friend. "His personal life is shrouded in fog," Maria said with a laugh. "At least he hasn't brought anyone here. I think he likes me too." Selena smiled dreamily. "Help me to have an affair with him." "How can I help you?" Maria asked. "Well, we should go out together. Maybe to a club." "I think that could be arranged," she said. "Thank you." Selena chuckled. "What about you and Max?" she asked. Maria met Max 4 months ago. He was in his 3rd year at the Institute and was 3 years older than Maria. They met, and she liked the young man very much, except that he constantly hinted at intimacy, and the girl was not ready for it. "I don't know. Everything seems fine. but he's always hinting at a cupcake. I understand him, but I'm not ready yet. I confess to my friend Marie. Well, what's a relationship without that? If you're going to keep him, he'll find someone more agreeable. Maria understood that. You're right. We need to make up our minds, she answered, sighing. Do you love him at all? Selina asked. I think I do. Do you or do you? Maria thought for a moment. She liked Max a lot, but she didn't know if it was love. She had 2 men in her life whom she thought were perfect, and she didn't know Max well enough to know whether he was the one she wanted or not. She also realized that there was no relationship without intimacy, but something inside her told her not to hurry. How long are we going to hold hands? Max asked in a disgruntled tone the last time they met. I'm not ready yet, Maria answered honestly. Not yet. And how long do we have to wait? Listen, Maria. This is a kindergarten, not a relationship. Understand, but I'm not satisfied with this. Let's meet at my place on Saturday. We'll sit down, have a drink, and then... I can't on Saturday. Maria had no plans, and the words came out of her lips. Max gloomed. Sunday? He asked. I don't know yet. Maria shrugged her shoulders. Maria, I thought you were a grown man, and you're acting like a juvenile dynamo. You're rushing me. Max, I've never been with anyone before, so it's not easy for me to decide. She admitted it. Look for yourself, but I'm no longer satisfied to walk hand in hand and kiss in your entrance. Max made it clear that he was ready to end their relationship if it didn't go to the next level. All she kept thinking was that she had to make up her mind and that she should have spent Saturday with him for nothing. Maria, what's up? Let's go clubbing on Saturday. Will Colin agree to go? Selina asked. I don't know. I don't know if he has a girlfriend or not. I'll offer him, but I can't guarantee that he'll go. After seeing Selina off, Maria immediately called her brother. Hi. Long time no see. He answered his sister's call with a smile. Colin, come with us on Saturday to the club. Maria said right away. With you? Well, with me and Selina. You can bring a friend with you. Don't you have any company of your own? He asked. Selina likes you. I didn't tell you that. I know, Colin answered calmly. And nothing. So don't go to the club without me. No offense. Shit. Colin, what's wrong? Maria's been thinking. She seems like a nice-looking girlfriend. Do you have a girlfriend? I don't have one right now, but that doesn't mean Selina will. Don't push it. If I say no, I don't. What if it's just for company? I don't want to. I had plans on Saturday, so no clubs. That's a shame. Bye then. Maria sighed and collapsed on the bed. Selina will be upset, she thought, but for some reason she was glad that her brother didn't like her friend. Maria agreed to spend Sunday with Max, and on Saturday she went to the club with Selina, who had a friend of her sister's working there, and thanks to him they went quietly, despite their age. Her parents let her daughter go with a squeak, but she said she was going with a big company, and not until morning. After an hour of dancing, Maria noticed Max and her heart froze in her chest for a moment, and a lump came to her throat. Her boyfriend was making out with some girl, obviously older than him, dancing a slow dance with her. His hands were stroking the girl's ass, and Maria suddenly laughed hysterically. Asshole, said Selina, watching her friend's boyfriend. And it's a good thing you didn't get to the cupcake. Selina, we agreed that tomorrow we would spend the day together, and everything else was implied. Maria replied, a tear running down her cheek. It's good that it turned out that way. I didn't like Max, you know. I just didn't tell you, Selina admitted. Let's go to the bar. I'm thirsty, said Maria, and brushed a tear off her cheek. Maybe we shouldn't, Selina asked, looking at her friend with sympathy. We should. Maria headed towards the bar. She felt so bad now that she wanted to get drunk and forget herself. The most she'd had before was a little champagne for New Year's Eve, But here she ordered a whole shot and drank it alone. "Maria, are you crazy?" Selena groaned, noticing that her friend was dramatically intoxicated. "I'm fine," she replied, and asked the bartender to repeat the shot. "Where to?" "Slow down." The girl looked at the bartender and turned to him. "No more." "Sorry." She took her drunk friend under her arm and dragged her towards the club's exit, hailing a cab on the way. "Give me Colleen's address," she said to Maria. "It's close by." Maria mumbled and rested her head on her friend's shoulder. "They're all such assholes. Dogs. I hate them." "Yeah. Give me your brother's address. You can't go home like that. My parents would kill me," Selena answered. "There." Maria waved her hand somewhere to the left. Selena sighed and took her friend's cell phone out of her purse. Finding Colin's contacts, she called him and told him she was bringing Maria to him. What a gift. Colin was standing near the entrance when Selena got out of the cab and then helped Maria, who was barely on her feet. "There you go. Sign your name," Selena said. "Colin, please don't say anything to your parents. You're sober." Maria's wasted. "How so?" he asked, supporting his sister by the waist so that she did not fall. "Oh, Slavka." "Hi. What are you doing here?" asked Maria, smiling stupidly. "I'm going home, and you bring her to her senses, please." Selena got back in the cab. "Come on, alcoholic." Colin smiled and headed with Maria towards the entrance. "You're all such assholes." "Colin, tell me, are you a dog too?" Maria stopped and looked into her brother's eyes. "Of course I am." "Go on." He led his sister to the entrance again and took out the key with his free hand. "Here, you don't know how to love at all. You just want what you want, that's all." "Yeah." Colin agreed with her and opened the door. Maria staggered into the entryway and immediately sat down by the radiator, covering her head with her hands. "Get up. You're sitting up," he said, and stood opposite his sister. "I cannot," Maria answered quietly. Colin lifted her off the floor, took her in his arms, and called the elevator. "You'll get a belt for sure," he said, stepping into the elevator. "Whatever," Maria yawned widely. "I'm dizzy. Really. Tomorrow you'll tell me why you got so drunk, you disgrace." At the apartment, Colin put his sister on her feet to open the door, then helped her take off her shoes and led her into the bathtub, where he turned on the cold water and then began to wash her face. "It's cold. My makeup will smudge." Maria was indignant. "Isn't it too early for you to put on so much plaster and get so drunk?" Angrily asked and turned on the warm water to better wash the makeup off Maria's face. "It's the circumstances," Maria replied with a slurred tongue. "What are they?" Colin asked. "Max, the bastard. I saw him with some girl. He was making out with her and mashing her ass. And I was stupid. I was going to give it to him tomorrow." Maria sighed heavily and cried. "Who's Max? Are you going to have sex with him?" Colin turned off the water, took Maria by the shoulders and gave her a good shake. "Look at me," angrily he said, and Maria immediately quieted down and timidly looked into her brother's eyes. "Are you a fool? Isn't it too early for you to grow up?" "I thought he loved me," Maria answered with a sniffle. "We'll talk later." Colin took a towel and began to wipe her face. "Now you almost look human again." Maria got to her feet. Her head was spinning, her eyes were double. Suddenly she felt an attack of nausea and covered her mouth with the palm of her hand. Without a word, Colin took her to the bathroom. "Next time before you get drunk, remember this. Maybe it'll stop you," he said, holding her hair back. Maria felt a little better. After washing her face again, Colin took her into the kitchen and turned on the kettle. "I'll call my parents. I won't tell them about your state of incapacity, but we'll talk to you again tomorrow," he said, and dialed his father, naturally waking him up with the call. Colin said that Maria would spend the night at his place and that they would come together for lunch tomorrow. Then he poured chamomile tea for his sister, and after she had drunk it, sent her to bed. "Colin, lie with me till I fall asleep," Maria said sadly, covering herself with a blanket. "Shall I tell you another story?" Colin turned off the light. "Please," Maria asked. "Are you feeling better?" Colin asked and lay down next to his sister. "Okay, not so much," she answered and laid her head on his chest. "Why is everyone like this?" She yawned and closed her eyes. "Everyone is different. It's too early for you to sleep with men," he replied, looking up at the ceiling. "That's not the point. He was with someone else and we were supposed to meet tomorrow." "It's disgusting. It's good then that I saw today. I didn't make a big mistake. That Max doesn't love you, so you don't need him. Go back to sleep." Colin fixed the blanket. "I'm gonna go in the other room. I'm sleepy too." "Now, wait till I fall asleep." "Colin, why don't you have a girlfriend?" "It's too early for me to think about relationships, so it's nothing serious," he answered. "But not serious, sure. Enough of that. My personal life is my business." "You're all the same," Maria sighed sadly. "Men are a little differently organized than women. I think you know that. Maria, go to sleep. I'm already passing out." Colin yawned and closed his eyes. It was not a good morning. Maria opened her eyes and let out a slight groan. She was thirsty and had a headache. "Colin." She moaned, but her brother didn't hear her. She got up from the bed and pulled Colin's t-shirt out of the closet. Putting it on, she went into the kitchen. "I'm awake. Isn't your head boo-boo?" he asked, putting the phone away. "Bo-bo-bo. And I'm thirsty." Maria poured herself a full glass of water and drank it almost in one gulp. "Here, I went to the pharmacy and bought you some magic pills." He handed her a packet of hangover pills. "That's cool. Thank you." She swallowed one right away. "You want breakfast?" "Ooh, Maria went back to her room and pulled her cell phone out of her purse. Selena had texted her while she slept, asking how she was feeling, and there was also a message from Max. "Hey babe, what time should we meet tonight?" he texted. "No, we're not." "Go see the girl from the club," Maria replied and blocked his number, then headed back to the kitchen. "Colin, just please don't say anything to your parents," she asked her brother. "I won't if you promise it's the first and last time," he answered. "I promise. I've had enough. I hope you'll send Max away." "I already did." "Good for you. You should be thinking about your exams and how you're going to get into your vet school. I'll study with you, of course, but just do your best, please," said Colin. Will you help me?" "Of course I'll help you, but I won't take the exams for you." "Thank you. When do we start?" "We'll start next week." "Are you sure you're going to go to veterinary school?" "Yeah, teeth aren't my thing." "You're running away from your family?" Colin smiled. "I'm sorry about that." "Do you really want to pick your mouth?" "I'm going into prosthetics. It's a very good, high-paying job. Veterinarian's not bad either." "No argument there. I'm kind of hungry." Maria felt her stomach rumbling. Scrambled eggs. Scrambled eggs. What a choice. The girl smiled. "Well, I'm not a cook." Colin took cheese, eggs, and sausage out of the refrigerator. "Eggs and sausage and a cheese sandwich," Maria answered. The day was sunny, and after breakfast, Maria suggested to her brother to take a walk in the park, which was not far from his house, and then to go home. As promised, Colin did not tell his parents anything about Maria, and from the next week he began to study with her every night, and in the end, Maria got on the budget, which was noted by the whole family in the restaurant. Max quickly got away from her, and the girl was glad that everything had turned out that way. After all, if she had not seen him by chance in the club, she would have made a big mistake. Now her fleeting romance with Max was a lesson for her, and Maria decided that only for great love she would give a man all of herself. In fact, that was her next wish, to meet love. 3 years later, Oliver had been chasing Maria since her freshman year, but she didn't like the young man at all. And the fact that he wouldn't give up just annoyed her. And so once again, Oliver invited her to a joint dinner, but was again refused. When she saw that Colin was already waiting for her near the institute, Maria breathed out a sigh of relief and waved to him. She couldn't wait to say goodbye to the annoying Valera. "Who's that?" Oliver asked, furrowing his eyebrows. "My fiancé." Maria lied. After all, Oliver doesn't know anything about her relatives. But at least he'll leave her alone, she decided, and hurried to Colleen's car. "What's the picture?" her brother asked her when she sat down next to him and kissed him on the cheek. "He's a clingy guy. I don't like him and he doesn't get it. I'm sick of it." Maria said, "Okay, let's go get some flowers first. Today was Stacy's birthday, so we decided to just have a family get together tonight." "What are you getting your mom?" Maria asked him. "A secret." Colin smiled enigmatically. "Oh, come on. I'll see it anyway. When I give it to you, you'll see it then. Are you coming to the club with us on Saturday?" "I could go. Carlos keeps pulling me back. He really likes your Selena. He wants to keep seeing her." "Is he okay with that? Selena liked you in general?" "He's okay. You know him. I don't think your girlfriend still likes me." "She does. I know she does." "Maria, this subject is closed." Colin parked outside a flower store. After choosing a beautiful bouquet, they drove to the house, chatting about Maria's studies and Colin's work, without touching on topics of liking him more. "Mom, happy birthday." Colin handed Stacy the bouquet and then pulled out a long velvet case containing a gold bracelet. "Well, you've made me golden today." Stacy smiled and then hugged Colleen and Maria in turn, kissing each on the cheek. Her husband had given her diamond earrings. Maria had given her a gold zodiac sign pendant from this morning, and here was a bracelet. "Come on into the kitchen. I didn't cook anything. We ordered everything from an Italian restaurant." Father and younger sister were already sitting at the table, waiting only for them. Maria loved it when they gathered like this as a family, discussing everything that could be discussed. Selena smiled strangely at Carlos, knowing that he sympathized with her. But she still liked Colin, who paid no attention to her. Even the slow dance he preferred to dance with his sister, not with her. "Selena doesn't like your friend." During one slow dance, Maria said, watching her friend. "If she doesn't, she doesn't. No one is forcing you to," Colin replied indifferently. "Are you still not ready for a serious relationship?" "Maria, you like to serve." Colin smiled without answering her question. "I have no one. I do not like anyone. I do not date anyone. What's there to hide? You're the one with all the secrets. You could have told me. We used to tell each other everything, but now you're distant. Distant. We see each other almost every day. What can I tell you? I just started working. I'm not in a serious relationship. Are you happy? Are there any non-serious ones?" Maria didn't give up. "I'll bite you. You're so clingy. I had some, but it's over now," Colin answered. "Is the girl bored?" "That's it. Stop torturing me about my personal life." Fast music started again and their conversation stopped. After a while, Selena thawed a little to Carlos, and then even admitted to a friend that he was okay. Anyway, after the club, they took a cab to her house together because it was too far to walk to see her off. "My place?" Colin asked Maria. "Come on. It's closer to you," she agreed. Going up to the floor, Maria was the first to notice the girl standing outside her brother's apartment. "What are you doing here?" he asked, and Maria realized that Colin was not at all happy to see this nocturnal guest. "Who is it?" The girl glared angrily at Maria. "None of your business. Get away from the door." Colin pulled out his keys, but the girl blocked his way. "Who's that little girl, I ask you?" she shouted. "Get out of my way and get out of my way," said Colin, coming almost right up to her. "So this is what you traded me for?" She grinned, casting a scornful glance at Maria. "We didn't have the kind of relationship that would make you throw tantrums at me now. I see what's wrong with you." She shifted her gaze to Maria. "And to you, girl, I want to tell you that you shouldn't get involved with this dog. He'll find a replacement in no time." She threw a hate-filled glance at Colin, then went to the elevator. "Shall we go to sleep or watch a movie?" Colin asked when they were in his apartment. "We could watch a movie." "So you dumped her?" "Stopped seeing her. I didn't expect her to come over. We weren't serious." She didn't seem to think so. Maria answered and went to the kitchen. She had voiced that she didn't want a relationship when we started dating. She was interested in meeting and having a good time. "Maria, I'm not a monk, and I was fine with that." And then it started. "Well, when one is no longer satisfied with the format of a relationship, one should break up." "I don't get it. I'm against it." Maria looked at her brother with judgment. "You're right to be against it. Let's go to the room to choose a movie." Having settled down on the bed, they began to watch the latest movie. "Maybe a mystical thriller?" Colin asked. No. Not soaps. And not a horror movie. Comedy? I could do that." Choosing a comedy they both hadn't seen, Maria and Colin got comfortable and stared at the big TV hanging on the wall in front of them. When Maria opened her eyes, she realized she was actually lying on top of Colin. Her head was resting against his chin, and one of his hands was resting on her back. She froze for a moment, then slowly raised her head to see if he was asleep. Apparently, they'd both passed out without finishing the movie, she decided, and gently removed his hand before sliding off him and rolling to the other side of the bed, immediately wrapping herself in the blanket. Strange feelings came over the girl, and she blushed with embarrassment. "Hi, Sophia," said Colin with a smile and handed her a bag. "Bought us yogurt and pastries for breakfast." "Hi." Maria took the package and went to the kitchen, thinking all the time about the first time she woke up and the feelings that came over her at that moment. Of course, she loved Colin. There was no question about that. But how did she love him? For the first time, that question began to roll around in her head. She was ashamed of such thoughts, but she couldn't get rid of them. "Why are you like this?" Colin asked, obviously noticing that his sister was puzzled about something, because she looked very pensive. "Nothing." Maria smiled immediately and put the pies in the microwave. "What are your plans for today?" he asked her. "Nothing. I'll have breakfast and go home." "And you?" answered Maria. "I want to rest today. I have a lot of work tomorrow. I want to watch a movie because we didn't watch it yesterday." After these words, Maria blushed and immediately turned away. "You can keep me company. We'll order sushi for lunch, watch movies, and in the evening I'll take you home." "Okay." She didn't realize how she'd gotten that out of Maria and immediately regretted it. But she didn't want to leave Colleen. "Get the pies out." Colin put 2 glasses of tea on the table. "You don't seem like yourself today." "Maria, are you all right?" He looked her in the eye. "Yes, I'm fine," she answered and took the cakes out of the microwave. After breakfast, Colin and Maria settled back on the bed to finish watching the movie they had fallen asleep to. Colin threw his arm over her shoulder and the girl rested her head on his shoulder, catching herself thinking that it felt good to have his arm around her. And in fact, she always felt good around him. At some point, she felt Colin lightly stroking her shoulder. Maria lifted her head and looked at him. Their gazes met for a moment, and then Colin was staring at the TV again and abruptly removed his hand from her shoulder. "It's all stiff," he said, and Maria moved a little farther away from him, not really interested in the movie. "Colin, I should probably go home," said Maria when the movie was over. "Let's at least wait for sushi." "We'll still have time to watch the whole movie while they bring them," he said. "Why are you in such a hurry all of a sudden? What's going on with you today?" "I can tell something's going on." "Nothing. I just need to wash up and get ready for the institute," Maria answered. "Well, it won't take long to wash, and you can do it at my place." "And packing for the institute, does it take a lot of time?" "Well then, let's watch another movie, and after sushi, I'll go." Maria agreed, unable to find the words to explain her haste. Colin began to suggest movies to watch. and this time they decided to watch sci-fi. Maria moved away from her brother, deciding that from now on she would avoid tactile contact with him. Maria took a cab home. Colin, of course, insisted on driving her home, but she convinced her brother to stay and rest before the hard work of the day. All week, Maria found different excuses not to meet Colin, but on Saturday he came to visit them. After having lunch with everyone, Maria went to her room and sat down at the computer. "May I?" Colin knocked on her shit, and without waiting for an answer, came into the room when the parents with Casey went for a walk with Buddy. "Why didn't you leave?" Maria asked, and without getting up from her computer chair, turned to face him. "You didn't want to go either." "Maria, you've been avoiding me all week." "What have I done wrong?" he asked, and sat down on the bed. "You imagined it." Maria made a carefree appearance and smiled. "And if you're honest?" Colin kept his eyes on her. "Honestly," she answered. "Shall we go outside too? The weather's nice today," he suggested. "I don't feel like going out today." "What do you feel like doing?" "I wanted to read something." "It's for studying." "Am I interrupting?" "I can read later, after you leave." "I wanted to invite you to a concert. The Golden Gramophone is in 2 weeks. I got 2 tickets. Maybe you should go with a girl." It sounded a bit snide, which Maria didn't mean, but it came out that way. "I don't have a girlfriend." "Maria, what the hell is wrong with you? After last weekend, you've been avoiding me. Now you're talking like I'm guilty of something. What's wrong?" "I'm not leaving here until you answer me," said Colin, completely unaware of what was going on with his sister. "I just don't think I should stay overnight at your place anymore," Maria admitted. "What happened to make you feel that way all of a sudden?" "Colin, you and I fell asleep without finishing the movie. And when I woke up, The girl was silent, trying to find the right words. "That?" Colin asked, waiting for her to answer. "We didn't sleep like brother and sister," she said and blushed, remembering that day. "And how did we sleep?" he asked, not taking his eyes off her and smiling slightly. "In a cuddle well, you know." "As who?" answered Maria. "Now I see. So you were confused by the fact that we slept cuddled together." Colin got up from the bed and squatted next to the computer chair where Maria was sitting. "Doesn't that make you uncomfortable?" she asked and looked away. "Maria, we are not brother and sister," he said, still smiling. "Colin, I don't know what you mean by that." Maria stood up abruptly from her chair and Colin followed her. Once between him and the computer chair, Maria became nervous and stepped aside abruptly. "What if I told you that I treat you completely differently from my sister?" Colin asked, not realizing how Maria's heart suddenly hammered in her chest after those words. She turned around and leaned on the computer desk, feeling her cheeks flaming. "Otherwise, how?" she asked quietly. Colin came so close to her that she could hear his heart beating as fast as hers. "I think you can see how," he answered, tilting his head so that his lips almost touched Maria's. Without realizing what she was doing, Maria put her arms around Colin's neck and closed her eyes. She didn't have to wait long. He immediately began to kiss her, wrapping his arms around her waist and pulling her close to him. The realization that she was kissing Colin suddenly made Maria abruptly interrupt the kiss. She pushed away the man she had thought of as her brother for years and took a step back, trying to regain her breath. "Colin, go away," she said, and put her hand out in front of her, letting him know not to come near her. "Maria, let's just talk," he said, in no hurry to leave her room. "About what?" "We shouldn't have." "Oh, God." Maria clutched her head and sighed heavily. Her thoughts were jumbled, and her soul was suddenly gripped by an incomprehensible fear. Not to mention the embarrassment she was feeling right now. "Maria, calm down. Sit down and we'll just talk. We've ruined everything. How are we supposed to communicate after this?" She looked at him with eyes full of disappointment. "Please, just listen to me." Colin took her hand, but Maria immediately pulled her hand out of his. "What are you so afraid of? I realize I've shocked you, but Maria, I've been looking at you for a long time. Not as a sister, but as a girl I really like, even more than that. To be honest, I've been trying to fight my feelings for you for a long time, but I can't treat you like a sister. Jesus, Colin, what are you talking about? Maria covered her face with her palms. What's wrong with a man liking a woman? Well, we grew up together for some time, during which we got to know each other from all sides. You and I spent a lot of time together. Were we bad for each other? Answer yourself. Do you love me? Of course I love you, Colin, but how? Maria was suddenly silent. She didn't understand how she loved him. A brother. That's not how you kissed me a few minutes ago. I don't know what came over me. It was a mistake. Maria answered. I don't think so, Colin said, and they both heard the front door open and Buddy bark. We'll talk later. Let's go and have tea. I've brought a delicious cake, he said afterwards. I don't want anything. Maria went to the window and, pulling back the curtain, looked out into the distance. Colin quietly came up behind her and put his arm around her waist. Have you lost your mind with everything? Maria bounced away from him like a scalded woman. Good. We'll get back to this conversation later. Colin sighed and walked out of her room. Isn't Maria going to have tea? Stacy asked when everyone came into the kitchen except Maria. I'll get her, said Casey, and went to her sister's room. Finding Maria sitting on the bed and covering her face with her palms, Casey was very surprised, not understanding what suddenly happened to her sister. Maria, what are you doing? She asked and sat down next to her. Nothing. She sighed and took her hands away from her face. Did something happen? Did you have a fight with Colleen? No. Just some problems. It's no big deal. Let's have tea then. Everyone's in the kitchen. Come on. Maria got out of bed. She didn't want her parents to think that something had happened to her. At the table, Maria tried not to look at Colin, feeling that he occasionally glanced at her. She finished the tea party quickly and, saying that she had a lot of reading to do on her studies, went to her room. When she saw Colin's car outside the institute, Maria stopped, feeling her heart beat faster. Is the fiancé meeting her again? Oliver asked, appearing out of thin air. Of course, Maria answered, and gathering her courage, went to the car. Colin immediately got out of the car. Hi, he said with a smile. Why did you come here? Maria asked, giving him a stern look. We didn't agree yesterday. He answered and opened the car door. Get in. Let's go and sit somewhere. Maria silently got into the car and fastened her seatbelt. The most frightening thing was that she wanted to repeat yesterday's kiss and more. Colin stopped the car at the nearest cafe. Have you come to your senses? He asked after they had ordered. More than recovered, Maria replied. Maria, I want you and me to be together, said Colin. And how are you going to tell your parents that? Imagine how they would react to such news. No, nothing can happen between us, and I'm so sorry we ruined the beautiful relationship we had, Maria replied, staring at the menu. Our relationship will be even more beautiful, and our parents will be shocked for a while, but everything will be fine. It's like you keep forgetting that we are not brother and sister or blood relatives. There's no impediment to our relationship. Colin, I don't know what to say at all. Maria looked at him with a suffering look. It was very difficult to fight herself, especially since he really wasn't her brother in essence. Let's tell our parents today that you and I are getting married, he suggested. The girl's eyes widened, and she paled and opened her mouth to stare at him. Well, not directly in the forehead, but we'll talk carefully. Explain that we love each other. Do you mean it now? Maria regained the power of speech. Absolutely. Colin put his hand on top of hers. Maria, I love you. And for how long? She asked shyly, starting to blush. I realized about 3 years ago, but I can't say how long. A waiter came to their table and brought their order. Shall we go to my place after the cafe? Colin asked when the waiter left. Did you just invite me for a cupcake? Maria asked, blushing even more. No, I just want to be alone with you. I promise I won't pester you. Unless you want to, nothing will happen, he answered. Amazed at herself, Maria drove to Colleen's house, having previously informed her parents that she would not come to spend the night tonight. She should have refused, but instead she agreed, unable to cope with her desires. Colleen kept his word. He didn't even try to kiss Maria when they were in his apartment, and Maria really wanted him to kiss her, and despite the fact that she was afraid of intimacy with a man because she had never had anyone, she also wanted it, or rather to say she wanted it with him. And to get married too, even thought about the fact that they would have 2 children. What are you doing? Colleen asked her, seeing how Maria shook her head. Nothing. It's just a blur in my eyes. She lied as she went into the bedroom. Are we going to watch movies again? She asked. Whatever you want. We can watch a movie, we can just talk, he said. Let's watch Guardians of the Galaxy. Selena went to the movies last night. She liked the movie. She says it's on the net too. If it is, let's do it. A few minutes later, Maria and Colleen were already sitting on the bed, at a pioneer's distance from each other. He raised his arm at shoulder level, inviting Maria to sit next to him. Realizing this without words, she scooted closer and even covered her eyes for a moment when his hand came down on her shoulder. Because of the pile of thoughts in her head, Maria wasn't up for a movie, so she couldn't stand it. Colleen, kiss me, please. Suddenly she whispered after about half an hour of watching the movie. The man smiled and gently touched her lips with his lips. And then something happened that Maria didn't expect from herself. Colleen didn't insist on more than a kiss, but Maria inclined him to it, not saying a word, but rather quickly freeing him from his clothes and caressing his body with her hands. Time to wake up. Maria heard Colleen's quiet voice and opened her eyes slightly. 5 more minutes, she whispered back, and a smile appeared on her lips. Sophia, he answered, covering her neck with kisses. Well, at least 3 minutes, Maria said, not wanting to get out of his embrace. Good, Colleen said, pulling her closer to him. In the end, they lay for 10 minutes, and then they had to get up. How are you? Colleen asked Maria. He was very careful, of course, for fear of hurting her, and it seemed to him that what had happened between them last night had pleased Maria as much as he had, but he was still worried about the girl. Very well. And you? I'm very inexperienced. Did you have a good time with me? She asked, blushing. Colleen immediately put his arms around her and kissed her lightly on the lips. It was great, he answered. We'll tell our parents tonight. No, Maria objected. Let's not tonight. She was still afraid to imagine their reaction to such news. When? Maria, I don't want to hide and meet you secretly. Don't worry, I'll take the fall if there is one. But I know they'll eventually digest it, understand, and won't hold it against us. Let's do it next weekend. Why wait so long? I need to get in the mood. Saturday then, and no excuses later. Okay, Maria agreed. They'll wash up and I'll make breakfast. Colleen kissed Maria once again and went to the kitchen. When Colleen stopped the car near Maria's institute, he wished her a good day, kissed her goodbye, and said that today he had a lot of work and they could not meet, but he would call her when he was free. All day Maria smiled, not really getting into her studies. Her thoughts were far away from her right now, and there was nothing she could do about it. You've been in the clouds all day today, said her classmate Julianne, with whom they were on friendly terms. Are you in love? You could say that, said Maria. And who's the lucky guy? Someone from the course or the institute? No, he's not from the institute. Maria was not going to go into details. Secret? No. He works at Dad's clinic, Maria said. And it was basically true because Colleen worked with his father. Worked. A dentist. Yeah, Maria said. Are you going home? I'm waiting for Sabrina. I'm going to the mall with her. She's going to her sister's wedding to pick out a dress. Do you want to come? Julianne suggested it. I'm going home, Maria answered. See you tomorrow then. See you tomorrow." As Maria left, Oliver approached Julianne. "Why are you looking so sour today?" she asked him. "Nothing." "Do you happen to know if Maria is serious about this on the audit?" he asked. "What Audi?" Julianne didn't understand. "Well, on the gray Audi that often picks her up." Julianne laughed. "So it's her brother who picks her up. But she has a boyfriend, too." So Oliver forget it and switched to another subject. Julianne replied. "Brother?" asked the man, eyes bulging. "Yeah. Why are you so surprised?" "No reason," Oliver answered and walked away. He'd seen Maria kissing this brother in the morning. In the evening, Colin did not call, but came to their house with his parents. Maria was terribly afraid that he would now tell them everything about their relationship, but Colin did not. They all had dinner together, and then, when everyone had gone to their rooms and after talking to Casey, he went to Maria and, barely having locked the door of her room behind him from the inside, he immediately put his arms around her and kissed her. "I miss you terribly," he whispered. "Are you crazy? They can hear us," she said in a low voice. "Well, we're not going to do anything that they might hear," he said. "I just wanted to see you. Did you miss me a little?" "I missed you a lot," Maria answered and pressed herself against him. "I should have told you today. We decided on Saturday." "I remember," he said. "Tomorrow I'll take you to the institute." "Okay," Maria agreed. Colin did not linger long in Maria's room. They chatted a little, and then he went to sleep in the room where he had once lived. Oliver arrived early and waited for Maria. When he saw the gray Audi, he hid behind one of the columns near the entrance to the institute and watched. From this place, it was very well visible how Maria was kissing this very brother. T.Z. He burst out from what he saw. Such perversion he had never seen before. Oliver pulled out his phone and took a few pictures. He didn't wait for Maria to get out of the car and went to the institute. Throughout all the classes, Maria saw Oliver staring at her with a very strange gaze. When they ran into each other in the cafeteria, she couldn't stand it and asked, "May I ask why you stare at me all the time?" Maria asked him. "I'll tell you after class," he replied. "I'm not really interested in the reason." "Just stop looking at me like that," Maria said and went to Julianne, who was already paying for her lunch. Oliver waited for Maria on the street, glad that the gray Audi was not near the institute. "Shall we walk to the subway?" he asked when the girl came out into the street. "No, Oliver, I've told you 1,000,000 times I'm not going out with you." "Stop following me," Maria said irritably. "I didn't know you were a pervert, Maria." He grinned nastily and then took out his phone from his jacket pocket and showed Maria the photos of her kissing Colleen in the car. "I'm very curious, do your parents know what their kids are doing?" "At the institute, too. No one knows yet, but that's just for now," he said in such a tone as if between them a battle in which she lost. Maria was frightened at first, and then suddenly began to laugh. Could she have thought that this underdog was spying on her? "This is spy stuff? Oliver, are you playing spy?" Maria asked through her laughter. "No. I just happened to find out you were with your own brother, pervert," he replied, making a squeamish grimace. "Without knowing anything, you shouldn't draw conclusions." "He's not my brother." Maria stopped laughing and looked at her interlocutor like an idiot. "Your brother comes for you on the gray auditory." He didn't understand. Julianne obviously told the truth. There was no doubt about it. "No. We have different parents, so I'm not a pervert. But you're a total asshole." Not wanting to continue this conversation, Maria hurried away. When Colin called her in the evening, she told him about the situation and they laughed together. "I hope this Oliver won't go running around the whole institute and spreading gossip," he said. "What's there to gossip about?" "I told him that you and I are not related," answered Maria. "He can present it differently. But there is no point in it. Maria, Come to me tomorrow after the institute. I'll give my father the spare keys, and you take it from him. I think you'll understand right away if you give me the keys. Let's better on Friday I'll come to you, and on Saturday we'll go home together and talk to your parents. Maria suggested. It's a long way to Friday. Maria, I want to see you more than once a week. I want you to move in with me. Colin confessed. I miss you too, Colin. But I don't want it to be a mess. We should get together and have a proper talk. We'll do that on Saturday, and then we'll go to your place on Friday. Okay, he sighed heavily. Kisses and good night's sleep. You too, Maria replied with a smile. Julianne rushed to Maria as soon as she arrived at the institute. Maria, this Oliver told me today that you are sleeping with your brother and lying that he is not your brother. She said quietly so that no one would hear them. What a degenerate. Maria clenched her fists. Julianne, Colin really isn't my brother, she admitted. I don't understand anything. You said yourself that he's your older brother. Julianne stared pointedly at Maria. She did. His dad married my mom when I was 5, and Colin was 10. We grew up together since then. Then my mom gave birth to Casey. We both call our parents Mom, Dad, but Colin and I aren't related. Maria explained. Oh, wow. So you were living together and suddenly you had an affair? No. It just started, and Colleen hasn't lived with us for a long time. Julianne, we were always good together. We just didn't realize we had different feelings for each other right away. How did your parents feel about it? Julianne asked, fluttering her eyes open. We haven't told them yet. We're going out on Saturday. There's nothing wrong with us loving each other and wanting to be together. I'm nervous about it, but I think it'll be fine. Without shock, of course, will not do. But Mom and Dad, we have normal. We'll understand, I think. I don't want any rumors to spread around the institute. I won't tell anyone. And unless you're brother and sister, there's nothing wrong with your affair. There's nothing to gossip about. Julianne replied. Exactly. Maria agreed with her, and they went to the first couple. Colin was waiting for Maria at the door of the institute, holding a beautiful bouquet of flowers. Julianne smiled broadly when she saw him and then looked at Maria, whose face lit up with a happy smile when she saw Colin, and without any shyness threw herself at his neck and kissed him on the lips. When Julianne saw Oliver, who was not happy, she came to him. Stop staring at them, she said, and shut your mouth before your jaw falls off. You said he was her brother. Oliver glared angrily at his classmate. I was wrong. It's just that their parents are married. There's no blood relation between Maria and Colleen, so they're not perverts. Oliver mumbled, glanced at the kissing couple, and then strode away. Maria and Colin hugged and walked to his car. How are you doing at the institute? That Oliver didn't spread any obscene rumors? Colin asked, starting the car. I told Julianne, but I told her everything as it was. It's just that before I told her you were my brother without going into details. Your parents didn't ask where you were sleeping tonight? They did. I told them I was going to the club with Selena, Carlos, and you, and since you live much closer to the club, I'd be staying at your place tonight. They react calmly to it and don't even seem to suspect anything. Maria smiled. Selena is having an affair with Carlos. Oh, yeah. And you kept saying she liked me, said Colin. I know. It's a good thing she switched. Jealous of me? Colin smiled slyly. Nope. I knew you were indifferent to her, Maria replied. As soon as they were in Colin's apartment, he immediately embraced Maria and began to kiss her, taking her into the room. I missed you terribly, so I won't let you sleep tonight, he whispered, deftly releasing her from her clothes. I don't mind that at all, Maria replied, unbuttoning his jeans. She even felt a little ashamed of her lecherous behavior, but her desires overcame her shame. She felt so good now, and she didn't want to leave Colin even for a minute. She didn't care about gossip. If it got around the institute, she wasn't afraid to confess everything to her parents. She wanted to be with him. She wanted to be with him. She wanted from him not brotherly love, and what was happening between them now was beautiful and filled her soul with boundless happiness. After stopping first at a cafe for breakfast, Maria and Colin went to her parents to finally tell them about their relationship. "Are you afraid?" Colin asked Maria before they entered the apartment. "Not as much as before," she said as she turned the key in the lock. Stacy was the first to greet them. "How was the dance?" she asked, smiling at the kids. "It was fine," Colin answered, helping Maria take off her jacket. "You wash your hands. Come into the kitchen. I made pancakes." "We just had breakfast at the cafe, so we'll have pancakes later," Colin answered. "Where's Dad?" "In his office, sorting out some paperwork," Stacy said. "And Casey's out with her friends. She'll be back for dinner. Mom, can you get Dad, please?" "We need to talk," said Colin. "Is something wrong?" she asked. A smile disappeared from her face. "Nothing bad," he said. Everyone gathered in the kitchen, and Colin was the first to speak. "Mom, Dad, don't be nervous and don't react very violently," he said, noticing how Maria had turned pale. "The thing is that Maria and I, well, in short, we are not really brother and sister, and we have a slightly different relationship. We're serious and we want to be together." Stacy turned white as a sheet, and Alexander frowned and stared at his son in amazement. "I know you're in shock, but there's nothing wrong with me and Maria loving each other," Colin continued. "Yes, but," Stacy mumbled, not knowing what to say. "What's the but?" she thought, not finishing her sentence. "Well, Alexander said and wrapped his arms around his head. "Mom, Dad, but Colin and I are not related to each other. We can be together, and there's nothing wrong with it," Maria rambled on. "Now I see what you were doing when you stayed at his place," Stacy said with a hint of reproach in her voice and looked at her daughter with a judgmental look. "Not at all," Colin said in his own defense. "I wonder how you realize that." Alexander slightly raised his tone. The man was clearly angry. "They started tumbling around in bed and it hit you." "Daddy," Maria gasped and blushed. "I'm just shocked." Alexander shook his head. "Dad, we want to get married. We want to live together." "What's that got to do with tumbling around in bed?" Colin said. "Are you going to start a family?" Alexander sighed heavily. "Is that a bad thing? You're looking at me as if Maria and I were incestuous. I understand that all this is unexpected for you and Mom, but we don't want to hide our relationship and feelings from you," Colin replied. "We all need to calm down," said Stacy, and took a breath and then an exhale, trying to come to her senses after such news. "That's for sure," Alexander agreed with his wife. "It's going to be an interesting family, although you're really not brother and sister, so..." Alexander waved his hand and got up from the table. "Where are you going?" Stacy asked him. "To get a whiskey." "Do you want one?" "No, but I need a drink." "Grab me some wine," Stacy said. "Mom, it's not a big deal." Maria put her hand over her mother's. "It's just unexpected. We didn't realize things were like this between you two. We couldn't even imagine it." Stacy sighed. "Are you against us getting married?" Maria asked, looking sadly at her mother. "I need to get over this. Of course you're not brother and sister, and you can have a relationship. It's just that we've all lived as a family, and to me you're both my children." Stacy suddenly started to cry, and Colin immediately got up from his seat and hugged her. "Mom, what are you doing?" he asked, and smiled slightly. Alexander returned to the kitchen with 2 bottles and poured whiskey for himself and wine for his wife. "Irish, drink a little and calm down," he said. And the woman realized her head and looked at Colleen. "How are we going to tell all this to Casey?" she asked. "She knows that Maria and I are not related to each other. We'll explain everything. Don't worry, please." "Oh." Stacy took a glass of wine and drank it in one gulp. Looking at his wife, Alexander drank half a glass of whiskey, took a bite of lemon, wrinkled his nose and looked at the children. "When are we going to get married?" he asked. We haven't applied yet, but of course we want to get married in the summer. Colin answered. Will you live with you? Sure. I'd like Maria to move in with me now. Well, the man poured himself another whiskey and drank it all down again. I hope it's serious and there will be no divorce in the future, he said. It can't be more serious. I've loved Maria for a long time and I'm sure I always will. Colin replied. I'm sure that's a good thing. Stacy, what do you think? He looked at his wife. What can I say? If they love each other, let them get married. The woman looked at the children and smiled slightly, and Colin hugged Maria without any shyness. Soon Casey returned from a walk and everyone explained to her that Maria and Colin would soon become husband and wife. The girl, of course, was also shocked by such news, but she took it less emotionally than her parents. Everything was not so scary, said Colin with a smile, when he and Maria returned to his house, taking most of Maria's things. I was terribly nervous, though, she admitted. I'd noticed. But it's still good. He hugged the girl and looked into her eyes. Maria, I love you so much, and I'm very happy that we don't have to hide anything, as if we were criminals with you, he said. It made me feel so much better that we confessed everything. Mom and Dad had scared me with their reaction at first, but I believed that they would understand and wouldn't be against us. And I didn't doubt it, he said. I'm still surprised that I didn't realize how much I loved you before, and not like my brother, Maria said with a smile. I didn't realize that I loved you differently either. The most important thing is that we finally realized it, and now we are together. Shall we go through your things? Let's go. They hugged and went to their room. Maria and Colin married in the summer, and 3 years later they had a son. By then Maria had just finished her studies and had already done some work in a veterinary clinic. All her dreams came true, albeit with some nuances because she no longer has an older brother, but she does not regret it at all. Maybe she shouldn't stay overnight at Colleen's anymore, she thought, and closed her eyes, slowly drifting into sleep. When she woke up a second time, she found that no one was in bed but her. And then she heard the front door open. She got up, adjusted her t-shirt, pulled up her jeans, and left the room.